Okay, today I'm going to speak to you about Isabella Grossling and Richard Moores and the murders they committed back in 2015. If you do end up liking this video, please subscribe. Now, in this case, the center of it is a young man by the name of Phillip Nicholson. This all took place in Bournemouth 2015, which is in the south of England. And of all the cases I've reported for you or made videos or whatever, this hit me the hardest, and the reason why is because when I look at Philip, I feel like I feel all his pain. When I look at Philip and the energy I feel, and when I look at his background and everything he experienced, I feel like just looking into his eyes, I can feel, I can muster, I can sense all the pain and ridicule and rejection he felt in his life. So this is actually tough for me to make, but I'm going to try my very best. Just keep that in mind. So, as I mentioned, this took place in Bournemouth, and Bournemouth is like a beach town in England when it's not raining, of course. So, 22-year-old Philip Nicholson, he had learning difficulties, and he was friends with Isabella Gosling, and Isabella at the time was 20 years old. However, the friendship seemed to have been very one-sided, and this is the theme of the crime: control and power. Isabella was clearly using Philip and his so called difficulties for her own advantage. For example, in the case files, there was evidence that Philip gave Isabella £800, and it doesn't take a genius to work out this is something Isabella would have asked for or would have demanded from Philip. And I'll get on to more later why Philip gave her the money. So if you look at this case a little bit more, on the 26th of May 2015, Isabella and her boyfriend at the time, Richard Moores, Richard was 26 at the time, and just to confirm, Philip and Isabella, according to the story, are friends. Philip is 22, Isabella is 20, and Isabella's boyfriend Richard is 26. They made Philip go back to the apartment of Isabella. Now, I've got the CCTV footage for you. So you see them walking, and Philip is at the back with Isabella, and in front is Richard. And they're just walking towards Isabella's apartment. Now, it is believed that Philip was told by Isabella and Richard, there's some girls for you back at the apartment. They really like you. They really want to meet you. Why don't you come through? And Philip was like, okay, I mean, no problem. It's like if my friend said that to me, of course, I'd go. So once they get back to the apartment, Richard hits Philip. He stabs him in the neck. And while this is going on, Isabella, believe it or not, was actually recording the incident on her mobile phone. I mean, talk about the height of stupidity. But it makes you wonder, why record this? The cognitive dissonance at the time to not be aware that this could have detriment. I mean, the events itself obviously will change your life, but to record it too, I mean, I can only imagine the thought process. So, according to the police report and in court, this video was played out. And in the video, you can hear Philip saying, "What are you doing to me?" And Philip went on to say, "Stop. I just want to be friends, please." And this is the bit that makes my heart bleed. And this is where I come on to Philip himself. If Philip had learning difficulties, it was also said, like in the research I've done, Philip actually left his home 2 months prior to these events. I am going to give you the synopsis on what I think Philip was doing. Philip probably was rejected in school, made fun of in school, and was alone. I know this, or I'm guessing this, because there were so many kids in my school of whom were similar to Philip, right? Social outcasts. They didn't fit into what were considered social norms, which I disagree with. I mean, Philip seems like I wish I knew Philip. Knowing this story, I wish I knew Philip because I would have made him my best friend and I would have made him feel so happy because he deserved that. What he didn't deserve was this stabbing that took place. I'm going to give you more details, of course, but when I read this story and I look at Philip, I wish I helped him. Now, before I continue, my videos will always be free, so if you do want to support the channel, Donation links are in the description. Please also feel free to join my Discord where you can talk to me directly. Now let's continue with the story. So with the actual video footage itself, Philip says, "I just want to be friends." And then Isabella continued recording him after he was stabbed. And then in the video footage, you can see Isabella and Richard discussing how to leave the body and how to make it look like he stabbed himself. And I'm in my early 30s, and reading that, I'm trying to understand that when you're 22 years old, like Isabella, or even 26, like Richard, why are you thinking about killing someone? I can't imagine. And why you would think about leaving the body, or even this idea of let's fake the death, if you know what I mean. like what happened to you in your younger life for you to have this train of thought? You understand what I mean? If you're willing to throw your life away over nothing, then there had to have been some events that took place either when you were young, or some form of abuse for you to find this acceptable. Now, going back to the CCTV footage, you can see Richard and Isabella are now walking back the path they came. So previously, they were there with Philip. And then now, as you can see, it's just Richard and Isabella. Of course, this is because in that interim, Philip went back to the apartment and unfortunately, he was no longer alive. You can now see them entering a bus, and look at the casual nature of it, as if like, yeah, I'm with my girl on the bus, you know, we're going somewhere like this. What the image you're seeing with Richard and Isabella on the bus is something you would see on a bus, on a train, or any form of public transport maybe 50 times a day. So from this incident, 4 days later, on the 30th of May 2015, Richard Moores and Isabella Gosling appeared before magistrates court in Bournemouth. So in the UK, you have the magistrates court and you have the Crown Court. The magistrates deals with slightly lesser offences and the initial hearings, and the bigger offences are in the Crown Court where you have the actual trial. In between that, Richard and Isabel were held in custody, and then on the 23rd of November in 2015, the trial starts in Winchester Crown Court. Isabella denied murder, but Richard pleaded guilty to the murder of Phillip Nicholson, and on the 9th of December, Isabella Grossling was found guilty of murder herself. And on the 14th of December, again, this was all in 2015, Isabella was sentenced to life with a minimum of 19 years, and Richard was sentenced to life with a minimum of 22 years. They both will be eligible for parole around 2038 ish. Um, but 19 years is nowhere near enough. In regard to the extended family, I did read some quotes of Philip's parents. Just imagine Philip's parents. I mean, they're old and they're experienced. They know what it's like to be young and being in school. I can only imagine how much bullying Philip would have gotten in school, as I mentioned earlier. I mean, like I said, I grew up in Britain. I know what it's like. And Philip would have gone through abuse every day, and his parents would have seen it. And when, like, if your child is born and he has or she has some kind of difficulties, right? Maybe a severe condition, maybe a mental condition, as a parent you could feel like you've already failed. You could feel inadequate. You like the love for a child can consume you. And I envision in my head that his parents would have felt so much pain on every bit of ridicule and abuse and bullying he took in school, because they knew from day one that he did have some learning issues, and they probably thought, you know, I wish I could fix this for him. I mean, for me, I think what drew Philip to Isabella was acceptance. And I think Isabella herself was bullied in school. Let's have a look at the two scenarios now, right? Philip is in school, he's getting bullied, he's getting made fun of. Look at your glasses, look at your hair, look at your face. Just imagining what young kids are bullying him with, right? And then he's alone, he tries to make friends, nobody wants to be friends with him, and out of nowhere, someone comes along, and not just anyone, it's actually a girl. She comes along and she is nice to him and she's friendly with him. And this is something he's never really experienced. Someone actually accepts him for who he is. He's going to latch onto that. He's going to be emotionally attached to that. And in the case of Isabella, if she is continually bullied in school, if she's made fun of by the way she looks or the way she talks, or any 100 number of reasons why kids bully each other in school, she's going to go and find someone who's weak that she can control or that she can prey on to take out her weaknesses herself. Like if she's too weak to stand up to the bullying, then she might become strong and become the bully to someone who is weak. Whether you agree with the concept there, to me, it's as long as you understand the point, then you get what I'm saying, right? And this goes back to attention. When you're alone and you're seeking attention, like all of us do, like I do, or like you do, when someone accepts you, you are blinded by all their flaws, and that's what love does. And my guess would be that Philip loved Isabella, and love has a way of blinding the sharpest of minds. Sometimes you look, but you don't see. And I think Philip, although he may have seen Isabella treat him aggressively, maybe she continuously swore at him, disrespected him, continuously made fun of him, played games with him, took money off him, as you heard. I think Philip ignored all of that because he was clouded by emotions, love for her, and the fact that he would rather be in pain but be with someone than be in pain and be alone. I mean, as human beings, we love having people around. We love having people who make us feel good, and we generally chase that. And I mean that in a respectful way. I chase it, you chase it. That's the whole point of acquaintance with friends. You become friends with those who make you feel good. But where it becomes trouble, whether you're friends or in a relationship, is when they stop making you feel good, but you still stay out of attachment and, well, having no alternative. So going back to Philip's parents, his mother, Michelle, said that what happened after that day completely changed my life forever. Michelle was about to go take a bath, and she only had her night and dressing gown on. The doorbell rang. She went to the door, she opened the door, and it was three ladies all in plain clothes. Now I'm guessing she probably meant police officers. Michelle went on to say that the ladies looked at her and said, "We found a body. We believe it to be your son." And my heart just sank. My world has just been ripped apart. Philip's dad, Chris, he went on to say, "It's knowing what happened to Philip. Trying to live with what's happened is difficult." It was also believed by police once they went through the investigation and they spoke to Michelle and Chris, the parents of Philip, that the parents knew Philip was at risk for months before the murder. And when I read this, I was thinking to myself, we don't know if a murder is going to happen, but the red flags again. So this is what I think the parents would have done. As I mentioned earlier, the parents knew all the pain and suffering that Philip took throughout his life. So his parents would have become maybe overprotective, but his parents would have become more concerned than any normal parent, right? If like my parents were never concerned about me getting bullied, so that wouldn't come into play. But if I was to have gotten bullied severely, I think my parents would have been more protective over me and paid attention a little bit more to who I hung out with, right? But if the parents themselves did see Isabella, like you all have friends and they have their partners, right? Boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, or whatever. And sometimes you can look at your partner's partner with a bit more clarity than your partner, right? Because you're not making the decision. Your perception is not based on emotion. So sometimes you can see things a little bit more clearly. And I think his parents, with their experience and their knowledge and they are wise, of course. I think they would have seen Isabella for who she is. So the question is, why did they do nothing about it? And for me, I think his parents saw how happy he was. They saw that finally he was smiling. Finally, he seemed like someone who was happy in life, which they probably didn't see much. So they thought, okay, through love of a parent, right? Through sheer emotion and happiness for their child, they thought, you know what, it'll be okay. Let him be. Like when he left home, right? I can imagine he left home because he was consumed by Isabella. In his head, through his emotions, he was consumed by Isabella. And The parents probably did try and stop him and say, hey, do you want to think twice about this? Maybe we're not sure about this. But in the end, I think they let him go because they knew he was happy. And given the fact that he probably wasn't happy for a lot of his life, again, this is my guess, then they had no choice but to let him go because they felt this was maybe not best for him, but they knew he was happy doing it. According to some quotes from Chris's father again, he said he could see the danger, but no matter what we tried or say or did in terms of Philip, Philip couldn't see the danger. He couldn't, and he just wouldn't walk away. That's Chris's dad. And in regards to the actual footage, the video that Isabel recorded, Richard did ask Philip, are you paralyzed yet? Because no one will miss you. And again, I go back to the cognitive dissonance. Put yourself in that situation. God forbid you wouldn't commit a murder. I wouldn't either. But when I try and put myself into that situation where if I'm getting into a confrontation with someone, a hypothetical, and I have a weapon, say a knife or a stick of some kind, I don't know, I never would, but let's just say, and we get into an argument and things get heated and it gets aggressive, I'm never ever gonna think in my mind, I'm pulling this knife out. And if I did, I'm dropping it straight away. Like we have these instincts inside of us that tell us something is wrong or something isn't right. Sometimes it's guilt, other times it's just intuition. But in the case of Richard and Isabella, it seemed like they enjoyed this. The longer they were at the apartment, the more and more they enjoyed it. Hence why Richard seemed to be throwing it in his face. Are you paralyzed yet? Do you like this? Are you enjoying this? Nobody's going to miss you. Nobody's going to care about you. Nobody cares about you now. So why would you want to be here? Nobody likes you. Nobody wants to talk to you. All that stuff I'm adding as an extension to what he already said, but it's all along the same lines. Richard and Isabella, two sick individuals, took pleasure in the murder of Philip. And I go back to the images of Philip. He loved her. He cherished her. She was everything to him. He even gave her money. And Isabella, who should never ever ever see the light of day again. We all make mistakes. We don't do that. And to give her, what, 19 years? 20 years, or however long it was, is a disgrace to the justice system. Furthermore, regarding Isabella and Richard, we are all naive and we're all smart, right? Like, depending on the situation, we can act naive and we can make the right choice. Life is about decision making. And I believe by the time you're 20 years old, though you're still learning and though you have a lot to get through in life, you have enough at that point for you to make the right decisions. And even if Isabella was bullied and abused in school, which again is a complete guess by me, but I do think she was, and for her to then go and take that out on Richard, like, let's keep it real. We've all been deceitful, because that's what she's being. She's being deceitful. We've all let other people down. We've all lied to other people. But most of what I just said there is only known by us. I know if I'm lied, the other person doesn't. I know if I'm being deceitful, the other person doesn't. Right? Whereas Isabella decided that all that insecurity and everything she hated in life, she would take it out on Richard. Like, she's getting bullied, she has no friends. She's angry, she needs to let it out. She finds someone weak, she finds someone naive, she finds someone who she can prey on to let that anger out and then take pleasure that finally she's letting it out. But if she ever was to see the light of day again, then that would be an injustice. And that's what I think the motivation was: pleasure, power, and control. Finally, both of these individuals had power over someone, but it says more about their own insecurities, as I mentioned, lack of confidence and lack of backbone, than what it does about the control and the power. The control and the power is secondary to their inner lack of sanctity. Now, as human beings, we all crave control. We all crave some form of control. I've always said, as a man, you got to be in control. Just don't be controlling, because they are two different things. I also believe that lying, being deceitful, being a sociopath, having schizophrenia, um, and all these other social type non-norms, if that even makes sense. So what we, those in society who are not considered normal, I believe a lot of those come from experience and nurturing and their environment. And looking at Richard himself, I think as his life went on, he would have gone on to become some form of offender. If it wasn't with Isabella, and if it wasn't Philip, it would have been someone else at a different time. It could have even been a child. But I do think he would have become a sex offender, or he would have committed some other kind of murder, because I think his life was as such, his corruption was as such, that taking the life of someone else is what became his pleasure. And finally, I want to conclude on this. The reason why I made this video and the reason why I told you this story, I haven't seen many people tell it before. But I feel like I could tell it the way I did, because I take one look at Philip and I get 100 different names that come to my head as many kids like him who went to my school. I don't mean kids that have learning difficulties. What I mean is kids who look similar to him, right? Short hair, white male. I mean, I went to a predominantly all white school and it was fantastic, right? So when I look at him, there's so many other kids that I remember from high school who in chemistry class I remember, and what we would do in high school, and like we would bully people, we'd bully each other, but like in a fun way. Like, I think in America you guys call it a thumbtack. In England we call it like a safety pin. We would put that on each other's chair, right? Like if I went to the bathroom, they'd put it in my chair, I'd come back and I'd sit on it, and it made my ass hurt, right? But that was the camaraderie and the fun that we had in high school, right? And I remember in history class, because I was a bit of a history buff, our teacher had really bushy hair, like what's the guy's name from The Simpsons? I can't remember. I'll put the image up on the screen. And we would make fun of him, but in a light-hearted way, right? And there were other times in chemistry class where we'd mess around with the Bunsen burner. I'm telling you this because during all these incidences, during all this fun, there was always someone in the corner by themselves. And we, or I, didn't have the intelligence or the maturity to get them involved. So when I put myself in this situation and I look at Philip, my heart breaks because I wish I were there. I wish I made him feel like somebody. I wish he wasn't ignored, as many of us would rather be hated than to be ignored, as being hated acknowledges you exist. And my guess, my opinion, my inference would be that for a large portion of Philip's life, he was ignored. Thank you for listening.